Disclaimer, in this video I'll be taking a look at a creator of animated horror whose work involves blood, violence towards adults, children and animals, and disturbing imagery of all kinds. I'm obviously not here to tell you what you should or shouldn't watch. I just want you to keep that in mind if that is something you are sensitive to or that could be potentially triggering. Feel free to click off the video if it is. Okay, now let's get on with the video. David Firth is a 37-year-old animator, voice actor, filmmaker, and musician from the world's one and only Britain. His animation journey, at least the parts of it that are still accessible, began all the way back in 2004 on Newgrounds, where he began publishing all kinds of little animated shorts, many of which would later go on to become wildly successful. Since then, he has never really stopped creating. In 2006, he has made a YouTube channel, which now hosts tens and tens of original animations, short film series, and all kinds of other creations.
Hello, my name is Andrew Tolven, and I am not dead.
Whether it would be the wildly successful Salad Fingers.
Well, hello, Mr. Fingers.
The hypnotically dark and disturbing Spoilsbury Toast Boy.
I think you should kill her.
Or the relatively recent Cream. David Firth has been leaving his strangely shaped footsteps all over the internet landscapes for more than a decade at this point, in places where it'd be quite expected of him, as well as in places where you probably wouldn't expect it at all.
And we don't do that, we go... You've got little tight crumpet lips.
For example, to people who are even a little familiar with his work, the name David Firth probably almost instantly connects with Salad Fingers, Dog of Man, maybe also Sock or Burnt Face Man.
I need not two legs to destroy crime.
What it certainly doesn't connect with is that he's also one of the geniuses behind a comedic rap sensation of Doncaster, MC Devo.
Summer is here and it's fucking buzzing. Have a can of Kestrel and I'll kick me girlfriend's head in.
But, lo and behold, there he is, in a song where a guy literally just rhymes the names of the women he is fingering for about 8 minutes straight.
When I was at school, I was a fella. Round the bitches fingering Daniela. Round the bitches fingering Selena. Round the bitches fingering Delina.
By the way, this thing got someone expelled from the job of a school teacher? Yeah, I'm not sure why I thought that was an interesting thing to mention, but I still think it now. The reason I like to talk about Mr. Firth is that I find him to be one of the most interesting artists on the internet of this, and the one before that, decade. I find him to be one of the people who not only put out original and fascinating work, but who also have a very interest-worthy creative process.
It was just some dumb thing I made one night, based on a suggestion of my friend, who just called me Salad Fingers based on how my fingers were shaped when I was playing the guitar.
Whilst a lot of people have over the years attempted to explain the bizarre inner workings of his animations, what I find way more interesting is the inner workings of the mind behind them, and the way he comes up with his ideas.
To someone who hasn't seen my work, I would describe them as strange, dark, surreal comedy cartoons. Some of them have a dreamlike feel, some of them have a nightmare-like feel, some of them are satirical, some of them are silly, but most of them are strange.
His work in general is very much based around dreams. Pretty much in every interview with him I've seen, he mentions dreams as a huge inspiration to his process. Not that what he puts in the animations are his actual dreams, but that he's trying to capture a similar feeling or vibe as the one of a dream.
I kind of got bored of doing things that followed a linear plot line. Instead of being inspired by other TV shows and films and things, I tried to take more inspiration from dreams and the way they flow into each other, where there's no explanation as to what's going on, you just accept it.
And once you know that, a lot of his seemingly nonsensical work becomes a lot more transparent in what it's trying to achieve.
Excuse me, Alan.
Don't look directly into Alan.
I'm sorry to bother you, Alan, but I'd really like something to eat.
No request. You get what you are given.
So that is what I would like to do today. Mostly just stop myself from annoying all my friends with talking about David Firth all day long, by letting all of my thoughts out on a much safer place, like the internet. But also I'd like to gather some of my favorite works of his, and along the way talk about the way they very much reflect his creative process. One thing I feel like I should mention before I get into the video is that some of the people who have been watching me for a while might recognize something familiar about the title of this video, namely the fact that I'm using the same title as the one I've used for my Palette Red Sun video, an examination. And the main reason for that is that this is basically going to be the same video, just about a different person, and in a different style, and with a different voice. But it's still the same concept, I think. I like a somewhat strange artist, and I want to talk about them. Enjoy! I don't really want to spend a lot of time talking about Salad Fingers. It has been analyzed, theorized about, and reacted to by some different people. I hardly have anything more to add to it at this point. I still feel like talking about it at least a little bit though, mainly because I think that there are some aspects of it which are generally underappreciated in most of the videos talking about it. And I also do think it is a good toaster for other videos, since it is some of Firth's most known work, and it also shows a lot of the tropes that run throughout his other creative efforts.
Daddy, look what happened to my end bits, Daddy!
If you're not familiar with the series at all, it is a very disconnected story about a green man, Salad Fingers, who wanders a strange great desert where he encounters various creatures, humans, trees, horses, and, often in very disturbing ways, interacts with them.
There he is. Trusty old Dr. Papanak.
Many of the events could be described by the word surreal horror, as they often are quite absurd yet disturbing, in spite of the fact that Firth actively tries to avoid jump scares. He even goes as far as to say that his intention isn't to scare people at all.
Many people tend to think it's purposefully trying to scare them, but that's not the case.
However, over the years that has become one of those things which pretty much everybody on the internet can agree is pretty disturbing. The visuals, the music, the confusing tones of the series create an atmosphere which makes it pretty much impossible for you to stay calm while watching it. However, I also think just calling Salad Fingers a creepy online mystery is neglecting a relatively huge amount of weirdly emotional moments the series also has. Like the most recent episode, Glass Brother, where he has to deal with his mother and brother basically being abusive and stealing his child.
The most beautiful boy in the world.
Now granted, his child was a sewn-together flesh doll, and his mother and brother live on the other side of a bunch of mirrors, but that does not mean the episode does not have real emotional value. There's also a few scenes in episode 4 where this humanoid falls in love with him, for example, and I can't fully explain why, but when he flies away from the creature in a water tap, I empathize with it a strange lot. There was also a certain amount of scenes which just seem funny to me. Again, it is very difficult to explain where the humor comes from, but...
Taps.
For example, there is a scene with a caterpillar, which I actually laughed out loud at for God knows what reason.
Your body is so much fun. I just want to give you a big stroke. Ugh. You've gone flat, little sister. And you're all gooey. I shan't play with you again until you've had a wash.
Or like the scene where he milks his salad titties with a nettle. It's so absurd that my brain probably just doesn't know how else to react.
It seems nettles have made the milk drop out from inside my teat.
Salad Fingers also tends to use words like gay and queer, which in context of the cartoon probably makes sense, especially since his vocabulary consists of terms from times when gay was still used as a term to describe someone who was happy. rather than a name for the creatures of the darkness plotting to take over the world. But I still can't help but get a little laugh out of it.
You're absolutely right, Marjorie. The floor sugar does taste rather queer in this area.
The theme for this series is also Beware the Friendly Stranger by Birds of Canada, which is not only a very fitting tune for the bizarre events that take place, but also has a very fitting title, as even Firth himself points out, because as dark as some of the events surrounding Sailfingers are, the man himself seems pretty friendly, albeit not very emotionally consistent, but often enough he seems like he means no ill will.
Oh, hello. You've picked a rather late hour to be visiting me. Have you got a name?
As far as explaining what actually happens in the different episodes goes, I don't actually have much to say about it, since I think it's one of those things you simply have to see for yourself, because the plot does not follow a traditional structure or any form of logic, really.
Oh, you appear to be free of all information.
Things just happen in a certain order. It might feel like they are happening for a reason, but in reality it's just a bizarre adventure where things rarely ever make sense, and you can interpret it in just about any way you'd like. Well, that's at least my thoughts on it. I'm pretty sure many theories would beg to differ, but I don't care. That, I think, actually about concludes my thoughts on the series. Which brings us to... Sock is my favorite David Firth series. I think it's the best place for his dreamlike aesthetics to show, and I love it. Unlike Sailfingers, Sock is a 6-part series with no link in between the different episodes. They involve different characters, different scenarios, each and every one of them even has a different art style. It's actually very interesting to watch them all at once because it allows you to see not only how much Firth has progressed as an animator, but also just how much animation in general has evolved over time.
Could you stop thinking about that dream, please?
I want to look at you for hours. I just need to keep my eye on the road, that's all.
The only thing really linking the 6 episodes together is they are all very much based on dreams. They even directly reference dreams sometimes, and they are generally very disconnected.
My skins were my only source of comfort. I'd taken extra special care to keep them in the best condition.
I have actually found a comment under episode 5 which pretty much perfectly summarizes my experience of the series. I used to think about it like, WTF did I just watch? But then I began thinking about it as a dream, and it all made sense. I had dreams like this one many times, where there is a very general storyline, but new characters appear out of nowhere and do strange things that make sense only in their world. You just go with the flow, and once you wake up you're like, well, that was strange, but it's a dream you remember fondly and even tell to others. That is basically the vibe of the entire series. You watch it, you feel like things might make sense in one way or the other, but once it's over, you really can't recall much from it, apart from some bits of imagery and the feelings it gave you.
Is my daddy in there? I've looked all over, but I can't find him.
I originally wanted to go through all of the episodes of the series, as I think they all have many differences, and they deserve to all get individual attention, but after narrating that part of the video, not only was my throat completely dead, but I was also left with about 20 minutes of audio, which just felt a bit extensive. So what I would like to do instead is sit back and talk about many of the more general elements of the series I really enjoy.
There isn't much noise outside today, is there?
She was right, there isn't.
The first thing are, as I've already mentioned, the heavy, dreamy vibes of the series. Because whilst I don't dream of the same things which are depicted in the animation, I remember things that made me feel similar from my own dreams. For example, the episode 5, where an unseen force randomly takes people's body parts away.
Hey, that's my good ear. You can't have that one.
On its own, it might just seem strange, but the way everybody treats it as a natural occurrence makes it seem very dreamlike for me. There's also the way characters say things which don't seem to make any sense, as if they are just casual things people always say.
If I were to press down hard on the left side of my hip bone, would I shrink in size? Of course it worked. Of course it did.
And then there's episode 4, which has an art style which is exactly the same as the one of a nightmare I've had. I'm not sure how that's possible, but it's pretty amazing.
I need to make a small adjustment.
The second thing I found really interesting are the elusive plots a lot of the episodes have, when they give you a feeling that what's happening makes, in a strange way, sense. You just need to think about it for long enough, but in the end you're still left confused, as the different links you draw for yourself end up bending and breaking under their own weight. I especially noticed this feeling in the latest 2 episodes, since they are way longer, 10 and 16 minutes, which is massive compared to the 4 other ones, which don't even hit the 5-minute mark. The reason they portray this feeling particularly well is because their length allows characters to be introduced at one point, sort of forgotten about, and then brought back later on.
Finish the job off, will you? I'm really getting tired of this.
It kind of makes you wonder where they placed in all these places, and if there isn't by chance any kind of actual link between them. But in the end, nothing really works out, if I can say it like that. And no, I'm pretty sure they are just reused assets. Yeah.
I'd choose another seat, but this is the only one nobody has died in.
The third thing is the weirdly thought-provoking moments which appear in the series at random points.
Jeremy, stop it! Stop it, Jeremy!
No, Sue, it's me, Carol.
You're only Jeremy when it suits you.
It's difficult to explain why exactly this, completely detached from reality dialogue between a man and a cow about the ethics of eating meat, is interesting to me. But it is.
That might be beef.
I don't give a fuck. That might be human.
Or this bit of dialogue, which I think about almost daily for whatever reason.
Does this firearm hold the sufficient force to blow the brain right out of my stinking rotten skull?
I mean, if you want to get it clean out, then maybe something like this would be more up your street.
Then sell me that one!
You'll need a bit more than that. Well, I mean, if you're only going to use it once, for a discount, I could loan you the gun, and then retrieve it once the job is done.
There is also, just like with Southfingers, a lot of strangely humorous bits, especially in episodes 2 and 4, as they evolve these abstract bits of humor, which, in this case, I'm pretty sure are completely intentional.
There's a dog trapped inside your guitar. I know that. That's not a dream. There is a dog trapped in my guitar. Ah, shit, I'm trapped in your guitar, like.
The last thing I would like to mention about the Sock series is the visual pleasure of it. This is more in regards to the latest 2 episodes as well, since the older episodes haven't aged the best. But I'll also include episode 2 in here, I think, because all of these episodes have a certain atmosphere to them. The second one feels weirdly ambient, with an eerie drone hanging in the background. The fifth one has a style which uses the cutouts of various images and sticks them back together to form a different scenery. A very fitting technique for dream capturing, in my opinion. And then there's the 6th episode, which is just... it's gorgeous. Whilst what it is portraying is pretty disturbing at times, the art style is so incredibly detailed and pretty, you can't really look away from it. Or at least I can't.
You think I'm hideous, don't you?
It also is the only episode to my knowledge which has an actual theme, All the other episodes have some kind of dark ambient tune accompanying them, but episode 6 is set to a piano tune called Constant Repose by Adam Weichert, which is so good, and so fitting for the series too. It makes it feel very satisfying once the Patreon names start rolling over at the end of the episode, and it's just such an aesthetically pleasing moment. And yes, that about concludes my thoughts on the Sock series. Check it out, especially if you haven't seen much of Firth's work, because it certainly will be a unique experience for you. Spoilsbury Toast Boy is another series in the David Firth catalogue, and whilst it is not nearly as dreamy as Sock or filled in nearly as much gore as Salad Fingers, it finds its own way to still be very unnerving. So unnerving, in fact, Firth himself has said that he stopped the series because it seemed too dark to him, like he took it too far.
I was at a stage where I'd felt the need to push things as far as they could be pushed, and that resulted in Spoilsbury Toast Boy -2 being just explicitly graphic and disgusting. And I think that's what put me off continuing it, because I went too far.
It is a backwards running series, meaning the series starts with episode -2 and goes all the way up to 0, with the first one uploaded being episode 0, for which more backstory is later revealed by the episodes -1 and -2. The series has a consistent, cartoony art style, which at least manages to take a bit off the edge of what's happening in the animation.
Hello there.
It also has, just like Salad Fingers and Sock 6, a very distinct and fitting theme, though in this case it was not originally made for the series at all. It is a theremin cover of Tchaikovsky's Valse Sentimentale by the late theremin virtuoso Claire Rockmore.
Come here, Grandma wanted to give you a big kiss.
But whilst the cover did not originally have any connections to the cartoon, and I almost can't listen to it without a faint voice in the back of my head reminding me of what monstrosity this has been a soundtrack for.
Why, this girl is full of keys.
You know what this means, don't you?
Yes, we must remove her nipples.
Also, good to note, the different episodes of the series are scattered across 3 YouTube channels: David Firth, FatPie2, and David Fridge Magnet. I'm assuming to avoid getting them all removed, which could very well happen with the constant onslaught of the disturbing events that the series is. The cartoon itself depicts a relatively hollow world which seems to be ruled by beetles, whom vary in size and shape but seem to all be a part of the same society.
Quickly, children, make the toast. We mustn't make the master angry.
There are the little beetles, which can sneak into people's brains through their ears.
Pleasant thoughts are unhealthy. They distract the mind, yes?
There are the human-sized beetles, which seem to just act like humans. And then there is the massive beetle boss, whom is only shown in episode -2, where he is demanding toasties from the other beetles.
Toasties! I demand more toasties!
It is all shown from the perspective of a little boy who makes the toasts, the Spoilsbury Toast Boy, who lives with his grandmother, which I do actually believe is one of Firth's favourite characters he's made.
I like the granny from Spoilsbury Toast Boy. I think my friend Christian did the voice and he did a really good job. And she's just completely brain dead, but just enough intelligence to speak, and that's about it.
And with his, I'm assuming, sister, Liashi. Whilst I did not want to go into the plots of Sock or Salad Fingers, I think Spoilsbury Toast Boy is short enough for me to briefly go through. So let's go. The entire series begins with episode -2, where the Toast Boy is getting stalked by a beetle in the wall, which, more likely intentionally than not, gives me the vibes of a very creepy uncle.
I've been watching you, little toast slave. In the shower, yes? Becoming quite the young gentleman, aren't we, if you know what I mean?
From there, he's dragged in front of a toaster, where he, alongside other children, has to make toast for the beetle boss.
Not toasties!
Meanwhile, Liashi seems to be struggling with some mucus in her nose, and is given some great advice from a beetle in a room right above her grandma's house.
Do you find the mucus in your nasal passage makes breathing a chore? Well then, perhaps you don't deserve to breathe at all.
Mucus is a living thing, you know. It has a certain degree of intelligence.
Yet afterwards cuts to both of the children going to sleep. But the beetles decide to even tamper with their dreams as they crawl into little Toast Boy's ear, making him dream some very messed up things.
Yes, yes. Little boy, come and join us, yes.
Honestly, if at this point you're feeling kind of sick of the subject at hand, skip this portion of the video because things do get worse. The following morning, the boy wakes up, but Liashi is not there anymore. He asks his grandma where has she gone, whilst giving her a dose of vaginal cream.
She's residing in a different postcode at the moment.
And the episode concludes on Liashi getting drowned by the beetles, who once again repeat to her that she does not deserve to breathe.
You don't deserve to breathe, little girl. Your mucus has been telling us this.
Beetles are good at this sort of thing, don't you know?
You just ought to trust us on this matter. We're in the know.
This starts off a bit of a strange theme, as each one of the various episodes ends with one of the 3 family members dying off. Episode -1 is way more simple. The Toast Boy is now standing in a room just with his grandma, where the beetles seem to be randomly appearing around him out of thin air.
Don't listen to her. She's a witch.
He manages to ignore them as she asks him to get her some huckleberry leaves. He goes outside, but once he comes back, his grandma is already laying in the fireplace. Afterwards, he's transported to a strange room where 2 beetles give him a time when he should make an appointment at some kind of a hospital. The end.
How does 9:41 sound for you, sir?
Okay then, sir. We'll see you then, yes?
But just remember, sir, we're the good beetles.
We want to help you, sir.
Take a business card, sir.
Why not take 2? There's an offer on.
Oh, we're such jokers.
Jokers in trousers.
Well, we're not wearing shorts.
It's not really the weather for it.
Episode 0 concludes the trilogy by him going to the appointment he has made, but then getting killed off by what the beetle doctor labels a brain-fixing machine.
I expect you feel much better after that.
There aren't too many other events of note, maybe apart from the fact that another human seems to be working at the hospital. Which is kind of interesting considering you haven't seen that many humans apart from the children making toasts up until now. So there you go. The plot of Spoilsbury Toast Boy. It's honestly pretty simple and strangely cohesive compared to most of the other Firth animations we have talked about so far. Granted, the world it's happening in isn't exactly regular, but it does seem to obey a certain set of rules and follow a somewhat linear plotline.
Beetles know this. Beetles are good doctors.
I think what makes Spoilsbury Toast Boy stand out in the Firth catalogue is mostly just how dark and twisted it is. For some people, something like Salad Fingers is very dark and disturbing, but I think Spoilsbury Toast Boy takes that feeling to another level.
Be a gentle bear and give Granny's gas and wisdom with that cream.
Because it not only involves things humans naturally find disgusting and somewhat uncomfortable, like huge beetles, lots of blood, or disgusting sexual shenanigans, but it also goes way deeper by using things which not only shock you with how vile they are when you first see them, but which only get worse the more you think about them. Like the fact that the entire cartoon revolves around children being tormented. The more I think about that, the more wrong that is.
It's based off of our world, a dark, twisted version of our seemingly democratic and civilized society as seen through the eyes of a child.
I have found a theory video talking about the series in particular, comparing the life of the Toast Boy to that of someone growing up in a totality.
This society claims it can see. It uses its so-called vision for cruelty and control over others.
Their lives filled with propaganda, people lying to them that what's killing them is actually for their own good. And whilst I don't fully identify with that explanation, it is quite difficult to deny that the uneasy feelings definitely are there. It is like a film about the Holocaust, except it's made by an alien. That is about the best description I can give it, honestly. So now that I would like to believe we have gone down the trail of some of the darkest Firth animations, I think it might leave some people feeling a bit uneasy. Which is why I would now like to offer you all a bit of a palate cleanser. A palate cleanser in the form of Jerry Jackson.
Hello, my name is Jerry Jackson. What is happening, guys?
Jerry Jackson is an absurdist comedy series by David Firth, which is so bizarre, the only thing more bizarre than its existence is the fact that in 2005, about 17 episodes of it have landed on BBC.
In about 2006, Charlie Brooker contacted me and said he wanted to get me involved in his Screenwipe show. So I did about 8 short animations for him. Later on, the BBC asked me to make some cartoons for their website, and I said the only thing I've really got time to do is Jerry Jackson, so I did a series of those for them. I think it was interesting that Jerry Jackson went from a cartoon that was originally booted off of Newgrounds for being too bad to eventually being picked up and commissioned by the BBC for their website.
And as a cartoon-centered young guy, Jerry Jackson works around a pretty regular world, which mostly serves as a caricature of the world we all live in, at which Jerry gets to spew loads of questionable lines and any opportunity he is given.
And then I threw a grenade at the chocolate man as well, cause he is used to that.
Unlike most recent Firth works, which are mostly a combination of flush visuals and quality voice acting, the most recent Jerry Jackson episode, made in 2019, rejects all of that, instead using a relatively trashy aesthetic.
Take 2 Jews and mix it with a Pope and a half, and then dip in your special litmus strip and see what the colour is. If it's green, then that means that John's mum is pregnant again. No.
The frame rate is low, the art style is simple, and Firth, who seems to be doing all the voices for the series himself, sounds very distorted, like he's speaking very closely into the microphone.
Baby, you are the one of my heart. I have a passion what is deep, like the rivers of the mountain for you. I don't want to be your girlfriend anymore.
There's also misspelling. A lot of misspelling all over the place, basically.
There is no learning in this bit of the episode, but John has got loads of knobs in his mouth. That was the bit where John had loads of knobs in his mouth. Jerry, I don't think we should put that bit in the final cut of the episode because it might make me look a little bit Homo sapien.
But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. It's clearly intentional, the misspells can be pretty hilarious at times, and it does kind of fit the aesthetic of the show. You know, it almost serves to give you a feeling of immersion, as the cartoon does look like something the main character of it would make himself.
This is my cartoon about life and death.
The events of the show are mostly just nonsense played out for comedic value, but it is notable just how edgy the humor of it all gets. There's a lot of references to murder, racism, shootings, you name it, it's probably somewhere in there.
Stephen is really clever. He is in fact so clever that he has problems with depression because he thinks too deeply about the things.
And whilst the humor is pretty offensive at times, I think it is understandable, as the series does not talk about Firth's views on the world, it talks about the views of Jerry, a borderline-brained teenager whom you really can't take very seriously.
He's all about the teenager that should probably keep his mouth shut, but, you know, says everything he's thinking, whether it's wrong or right.
I think actually one of my favorite episodes of the show has to be the one about political correctness.
I have got grenades, so I am going to throw some at John. Room!
It's only about a minute long, but it surely is a fascinating minute.
Hello, Mr. Asian man. Sorry, I am not allowed to notice that you are Asian. That is because we are all the same inside. But I am allowed to notice that you are French, John. That is because French are dicks and foul at footballs.
And it also gets an extra bonus point just for bullying the French, you know. So there's that. Another one of my favorite episodes is got to be the most recent one about religion. It is such a unique mix of topics, I don't think you could get something like it anywhere else.
Jews is acidic, but the Pope is alkaline. That is the main difference between the two.
Now, there aren't many other shows teaching the kids about religion, while simultaneously telling them about the hazards of your juices leaking out on the road and causing a traffic jam, are there?
No. That noise means John has to go and pray now. John isn't allowed to show his hair because it turns the ladies on too much and their fanny juice falls out and it makes the road too slippery and it is a hazard for the traffic.
Firth has also frequently cited South Park as a huge influence of his, and I think Jerry Jackson is a prime example of that influence really seeping in. I'm actually pretty sure Jerry Jackson is just what would happen if you watch South Park on acid. I kind of want to try that now.
My dog Ben was in the war. He said it was lots of fun.
I think it does in a way reveal a very different side of Firth, as it clashes very heavily with the disturbing work he is most known for. Because whilst Jerry Jackson does still include violence and talk about dark topics, the quality of the animation and the general humorous overtones just don't let your brain take it all too seriously.
Have you ever wondered what the insides of someone are looking like? No.
It reminds me of the way he is also involved with MC Devo. I think later it mostly portrays Firth as this dark, mysterious entity, and kind of neglects to also mention and talk about the countless comedic moments a good portion of his animations have.
In his rage, he pecked Burnt Face Man, leaving a small red mark on his arm, but more importantly, infecting him with AIDS. Luckily, Burnt Face Man had a box of matches and was able to set his bloodstream on fire and burn the AIDS. He also gained the power of having really hot blood for a few minutes, but it wasn't put to any use.
I'm not talking only about Jerry Jackson either. There are other comedic works that I'm not even talking about in this video, like Burnt Face Man, Not Stanley, a countless standalone shorts he's made, Twinkle Tits.
Don't worry about crows coming down to peck your buds. At the touch of a button, shoot them down with a built-in rifle.
Yeah, that much about the comedic side of Firth. Whilst it might not be as prominent throughout his work as the more abstract creations, if you enjoy edgy humor, it's definitely worth checking out.
It's so awful what's happening in Cloncaminkus right now. People are like dying and there's loads of disease and stuff, so we really must do something to help them.
Oh my god, it's so awful. We must do something. We must do something to help them.
Yes, we must do something.
Why is nobody doing anything?
As usual, whilst they can't promise you're going to have a good experience, I can at least assure you it certainly is going to be a very unique one. And that alone kind of makes it worth watching, in my opinion. I'd like to end this video by a quick segment talking about Umbilical World, David Firth's feature-length animated nightmare. It is a compilation film, which essentially combines all of the various animations he's made over the years, and turns them into an hour and 20 minutes long beast of an experience. Most of the film consists of already existing clips, however, it recontextualizes them in a way which makes it feel like the various disconnected events of the different animations do actually have some sort of cohesion to them, with interesting fusions of 2- and 3-dimensional animation, as well as smart transition points between the various shorts. It is very reminiscent of the feeling I was talking about when talking about Sock, as the events of it are, for the most part, sheer nonsense, yet they make you feel immersed in this oddly dreamy world that they have created. It's like that, but stretched over almost 90 minutes. I also think sticking all of the animations together like this makes you pay a lot more attention to the sceneries. That's at least what it does for me, because when you're watching something like this, you're no longer watching a YouTube short, you're watching an hour-long immersive experience, which you paid money for. And as wrong as that kind of feels, that makes me have a different experience with this world. As far as the events of the film go, it is mostly just already existing Firth animations, but there also is a good portion of newly made creations, which can't really be found anywhere else. All of the older animations used in the film have also been remastered, which was very refreshing to see. I know I have mentioned the ambient atmosphere of Sock 2 before. It gets even better once you're not seeing it in 420p. 420, 204. And there are also a few scenes which have been made just for the film, some of which have been shoved into already existing animations. There are a few new Southfinger scenes, also a Spoilsbury Toast Boy scene, I think, making it all flow a bit better. Also, whilst I know I haven't been very keen on theories in this video, if you enjoy that type of stuff, the film certainly gives you some more material to work with. I'd actually quite enjoy someone trying to make sense of the mind-bending insanity that is the film. Could be interesting. And yes, I think with that I have actually officially talked about everything I wanted to. I know I've been probably hiding it pretty well up until now, but I honestly feel like my throat's going to fall apart any second, so let's get to the conclusion before it's too late. So, what is the point of me going over and talking about all of this? Well, mostly just me having a topic to ramble about and distract me from my crippling loneliness by giving myself a temporary goal to work on. But besides that, putting together this video, I actually had quite a lot of time to think about just why exactly do I feel so compelled to talk about this man. I mean, I didn't originally plan for this video to be as long as it is, but I've apparently had enough to say about it to make like 40 minutes of content out of it, which has got to mean something. And I have realized that the main reason I have as much to say as I do boils down to one thing: originality.
I don't want people to stop being interested, but also I don't want them to predict what it's going to be like.
In many of the interviews I have read while making this video, Firth often talks about how much the originality of his work means to him, even going as far as to say that he would rather have made an animation people wouldn't enjoy, but which would surprise them, rather than one they would enjoy because they got what they expected.
I want to take them by surprise, and if they get exactly the salad fingers they expected, then that's kind of more of a failure than if they watch it and think that's a bit weird, I'm not sure if I like that one. It seems like that's the preferable outcome for me.
And whilst I will admit in isolation that does sound kind of corny, I think he's one of those people who truly keeps up with that premise, as when you go into a Firth animation, you really don't know what you're in for.
You're supposed to be doing your exercise, Yvonne. A lethargic child is a servant to the beast.
You can guess a bunch of general characteristics the animation is going to have, but the events of it will always stay a mystery before, and often enough even after you have watched them. Ironically, I think what makes me feel so compelled to talk about Firth as much as I do is in itself sort of reminiscent of the way we talk about dreams, because when you're talking about a dream, you're often enough describing an experience which you are fairly certain you will never feel again.
If they get exactly the salad fingers they expected, then that's kind of more of a failure than if they watch it and think that's a bit weird, I'm not sure if I like that one.
And Firth's work kind of is like that, like the work of many other sort of obscure artists, as nobody could do what he does the same way that he does. I mean, you can obviously make your own dreamy, weird, gory cartoons, but chances are if you pour that much time and effort into something, you would like it to be more in your own style, rather than beat for beat copy of somebody else. I think in a sort of backwards way, Firth's work teaches us a strange lesson about being ourselves, because when you look at a lot of celebrities or successful people, they tend to say, I got here because I was being myself, and ignored what the world around me had to say. But if you're truly looking for someone who's creating what they want, regardless of the world around them thinks they should be doing, you might just find a guy sitting in his flat in Doncaster, spending long days animating a bunch of bugs humping each other.
Yes, yes.
Thanks for watching. Hey there! You thought the video was over? Well, for the most part, you're right. But this is sort of the after video section of the video where I kind of want to do a few channel updates because I feel like I've kind of been slacking on that. But if you only came here for the kind of well edited and scripted and all of that part of the video where I talk about David Firth, you can basically click off. I guess I don't have much more to add to you, apart from maybe the fact that if you're interested in finding out more about David Firth, you can check out the interviews I have read and listened to and watched in preparations for this video, which will be linked in the description, so check that out. Also, feel free to like, share, subscribe, all of that stuff if you enjoyed the video. That'd be pretty sweet. Okay, now on to the channel updates portion of this portion of the video. I don't know if this is scripted, so some stuff might sound like a bit of a mess, but basically what I would like to address is, first of all, Happy New Year, everyone. I'm very sorry for missing the New Year shitpost this year. I know nobody probably cares, but I honestly feel like making some minute, short, weird video talking about the new year is like a tradition for me at this point. And the only reason I didn't do it this year was because every time I've tried to do it, I just suddenly got kind of depressed and I've had to stop. So Yeah, that happened, and it was not the best. Yeah. Another thing I feel like I should address is that I have been gone for 2 months now, and I do kind of feel bad about that because I specifically told myself that this year I'm going to try to take the YouTube thing a little more seriously, and then I've disappeared for 2 months. Not the best way for stuff to come together, but if you want some kind of an explanation as to why I was gone, honestly, it's mostly just that the video is 40 minutes long, and it took some time for me to get done. Yeah, there's not much more to it, honestly. I mean, I've been having some headaches that might have to do with it. But yeah, mostly just the video's long. Took more time. Deal with it. Yeah, it's terrible. But I'm still set on taking the YouTube thing a little more seriously. By that what I mean is that I'd like to start putting out more content somehow. Now, the way I'm imagining that working right now is that I am very proud of being able to make something like this video. Some lengthier, talk about something. Whether I enjoy it or not is kind of irrelevant, but I do like making talks about these sort of weird internet people, I guess. I don't know what you call them. I just like talking about them, so I'd like to make more videos like that in the future. But those videos take time, as I've said, so I would like to make one every maybe month or 2 months. I would put out something like this, something longer, something bigger, and in the meanwhile I might squeeze in some little, some just like little talks about random stuff I can think of. Maybe I'll just rant about a bunch of topics I wrote down over the years, who knows. But that is basically what I'm going to be doing, so I'll put out a longer video, and then I'll try to make like 1 or 2 shorter rants while I work on another big video, and that's kind of how I'm imagining it will work. It might not completely work out, so do not set your expectations too high. I might just get tired and not do anything. But that is how I'm imagining it now, so keep that in mind. What I would like to ask, if you've made it this far into the video, which you probably wouldn't if you did not enjoy the video, but if you did not enjoy this video, or if you just found the format of it to be way too lengthy, or you've had some problem with it, or you liked it for that matter, please let me know, because, you know, I have made some lengthier videos in the past, but I would really appreciate it if you let me know what you think about it, you know, because I want to keep doing it, but if that's not what you guys like, then I'll figure out another way to do it. Maybe I'll split it into chapters, maybe I'll make the videos shorter, I can find more interesting topics. If you have any topics you would like to get covered, or any people you would like to see me talk about, let me know. You know, and I'd like to get some feedback going on. Yeah. You can't see it, but I'm doing really cool motions with my hands right now. And that's actually about... yeah, that's about it for the after credits portion of this video. Yeah, make of all of that what you wish. I hope you will like what I'm going to try to be making this year. Hope you enjoy the video and all of that, and goodbye for real now. If you've made it this far into the video, here, enjoy a clip of David Firth and MC Devo doing a show about arts and crafts while pretending to be women in their 30s. I hope that made this outro section worth it.
Now what season is it?
It's Christmas! And I'll tell you what, there is no better time for getting down to a bit of crafting than Christmas. There are bits everywhere. You can use this and you can use that. Now, I know what you're thinking. You've been looking at this lovely Christmas tree here, and you're thinking, I couldn't make something like that myself, Joan. I just couldn't do that myself. I haven't got the right equipment.